Hello, this is Digital Accessibility, the people behind the progress. I'm Joe Walensky, the creator and host of this series. And as an accessibility professional myself, I find it very interesting as to how others have found their way into this profession. So let's meet one of those people right now and hear about their journey. All right, well, here we go, starting on another episode where I get to talk with an accessibility practitioner. And today I'm speaking with Julie Romanowski. Hello, Julie, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm pretty good. It's pouring rain outside of my home office in Vashon Island, which is near Blink's headquarters in Seattle, Washington. Where are you talking to us from?
I am in Central Illinois, a little town called Mahomet. It's not too far from Champaign-Urbana, wwhere the University of Illinois is located.
I've been to Mahomet because I went to the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. So yeah,
Small
definitely
world.
familiar with that. Yeah. So long time ago, but actually I was just there recently. So still fun to be able to reconnect with that. Well, it's great to be able to have this chance to chat with you about your work. And one of the best places to start would be if you just kind of describe what you're up to right now. Where what your job consists of, and then we can kind of go back in time after that.
Okay. Currently, I am the Senior Digital Accessibility Specialist at State Farm. Have a team of about 12 State Farm employees and about 10 contract employees who help us with testing. I am in charge of the accessibility training for the entire enterprise. I act as a kind of a mentor supervisor for my team members. I help train them, and then I work to train as many people as we can at State Farm. I also work in the assistive technology field, where I help our associates who have disabilities, help them with getting either assistive technology or setting up their workstations or work areas, desks, things like that. My specialty for assistive technology is for vision disabilities and cognitive disabilities.
Well, it sounds like you have a lot on your plate, and I'd like to check in with you, about some more of the details on that. But one of the things I like to do with this series is you look at the journey that people have taken as they find their way into the accessibility profession. So maybe kind of go back in time and what was, where did accessibility first kind of enter into your life?
All right. Many years ago, I can't even remember the year, but I was a lead for a Java, we called it Java enablement team. We were helping projects get their Java applications set up, their environments, things like that. I have been a Java developer for many years. So, but we had this framework that was used by the enterprise, and some people who have disabilities at State Farm had reached out to our team saying there are issues. We can't do certain things. We can't, maybe some form fields didn't work as expected or other things. So we have had this assistive technology services and support team at State Farm for the past, I believe, 26 years, may have been a little longer. And I went to that team and I was just talking to them and asking them if they could work with us and help us to first identify what the issues are and then to fix the problems. And one of the team members was actually a blind employee. He no longer works for State Farm. He went to work for another company, but he was one who helped me quite a bit and helped my team to address issues so that the framework that was being used by the entire enterprise would not be preventing people with disabilities from using it. And after I did that, another person on the assistive technology team decided to go to another team, and he recommended that they ask me if I was interested, because they didn't really have anyone with a development background, and they thought it would be good to bring someone in who had the development background. And I may not have known much about accessibility at the time, but I was a quick learner, and I was already starting to understand some of the things that they needed the knowledge they needed to have to do their jobs. So they asked me, and I jumped at the chance. I was interested in learning something new, and I really got to know the guys on the team, and we became good friends. So I thought, this would be great. And started working with them, two of us were focusing on the digital content at State Farm and testing for accessibility and working with the project teams to fix issues. The other two were specifically focused on our associates with disabilities and helping them. However, all of the funding went to assistive technologies. So for the digital accessibility side of things, we had no funding at all. And we were trying to get this started, get it where people would understand why digital content needed to be made accessible. They would be on board with it. They would be willing and able to fix any accessibility issues with their content. But without funding, it's hard to get things done. So I'm rather, I guess, persistent, or some people call me bullheaded. So, but
if I can just jump in there for a second. Yeah. I think it's kind of important to kind of highlight or underline that the work that you're doing was for supporting internal needs of State Farm employees. A lot of us in the accessibility profession do a lot of work on the customer side with making sure that people are able to process web pages and applications with assistive devices. Yet then in so many organizations, there's not the infrastructure in place for everyone across the spectrum to adequately participate as employees in the organization. So it sounds like State Farm was really progressive about that. You mentioned, I think, 26 years that had been going on.
Well, they were progressive about that. However, they didn't quite understand that we could provide associates with disabilities the best, most state-of-the-art assistive technology available. But if the web application or web page or something like that has not been designed with accessibility in mind, it's not going to make any difference at all. So that was something it took a while to get executive leadership to understand. And as I mentioned, I'm rather bullheaded, and I'm not shy. So I had no issue with tracking leadership down and giving them my 2-minute elevator speech about why we needed a digital accessibility team. So
as with so many things, getting the buy-in from the C-suite has a lot to do with how we move forward. So what was the next chapter as you developed your career with accessibility?
Finally, I mean, it takes a lot of work and a lot of fighting to finally get executive leadership to listen. And I was fortunate enough that they actually thought we were already doing these things, and they didn't realize how bad the accessibility was of our digital content. But I got leadership on board, and they assigned various directors to work with my team to start building a digital accessibility team. And the first thing we did was, if you're familiar with Ontario, when they had the accessibility, they passed the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. First thing we did were we were able to bring an accessibility vendor in to test our State Farm Canada site. And as expected, there were so many issues, which really got leadership's attention. And they saw that in the thinking the wow, we have all these problems. We could end up, there's the litigation, the fines, things like that. That really got their attention. So we were able to get more funding to start a project that then worked with the different areas at State Farm who were responsible for the State Farm Canada content, so that we could at least get it up to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG 2.0 level A requirement at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, Ontario and AOTA were probably the main reason why we were able to start our new digital accessibility team. And we were able to get the funding we needed. But after that, because for so long it was just leadership was thinking, oh, we don't want to get sued. What do we need to do? And at the time, it's like, what do we need to do to get by? And that can be very frustrating, because just doing enough to get by is still really leaving out a whole bunch of people with disabilities.
You mentioned then you had this digital accessibility team. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, different organizations have accessibility set up in different ways. Some are broadly across the enterprise. Others are people within departments and divisions that are passionate about it and kind of make it happen in their area. How does it work at State Farm?
We're kind of a hub and spoke organization. We have our main core accessibility team, the experts, and we have been working for several years to train all of the different areas, all the different departments, teams throughout State Farm to learn how to address accessibility for whatever their product is that they support. So we've helped develop little kind of mini accessibility teams throughout the enterprise, and we provide a lot of help, information, things like that. But now we expect these teams to take a greater role now in accessibility. So they're doing pretty good. There's some that are a little further advanced than others that are built up their accessibility teams and have met like WCAG 2 AA requirements. There are others that are still trying to fix level A requirements. We don't have any that aren't doing anything for accessibility. All of them understand that this is what we need to do. And State Farm actually made it an enterprise standard that our products must meet. Right now, we are focused on meeting WCAG 2.0 AA, and then starting next year, we will be focused on WCAG 2.1 AA.
And then within individual product groups or project groups, is it the project manager or the product manager responsible for making sure that everything is in place for accessibility, or are individuals responsible for making sure that they understand their role in the accessibility process?
Yeah, the product or project manager, they're responsible for making sure just overall accessibility is being addressed, and providing the information that their team members may need, which they would come to us and we could help with training, guiding them on providing suggestions on coding, things like that. But the project manager would handle it overall, and then the individuals like the design team would be focused on accessible design. Content creators would be focused on making sure that the content is accessible. Developers, the code, testers, all that, they're all involved. And recently, it's been the past year now where we're not just focused on, when I hear a lot of accessibility people talking, they're focused on like web pages, web applications, mobile maybe. So many of them aren't really focused on for us, the huge amount of communications that are all like electronic documents, emails, Word documents, PowerPoint, spreadsheets, PDFs, all that stuff. There's so much of that. They're not focused on that. They're not focused on accessible video. So that's something in the past couple of years we've really gotten the enterprise to understand this is important. And we do have gotten to the point, I think, where everyone understands that they play a role.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're just creating a Word document to share, you're creating an executive report to share, you have a role in accessibility. If you're someone else that is planning a webinar, something like that, you have a role as well.
You know,
it seems to be working good.
So something, you know, you're just talking about, you know, that this part of correspondence, and then I'm thinking about my own interaction with insurance companies, and you know, I'm moving my content to the insurance provider as much as they're sending me information. I never really thought about, like, from your customers sending information into your system. I imagine that probably a lot of that isn't accessible, and so is that something that comes into the analysis of how to be able to deal with the things that are incoming?
Yeah, we're trying to figure that out. We really can't control how they share the information. Sometimes I know I've received PDF documents that a customer sent to an agent or agent staff, and we have several agents and staff members who have vision disabilities. There are some who are legally blind. There are others who have light sensitivity issues, others who may be one-man macular degeneration, so he's not able to see certain things. And most of them use a screen reader. Most of them use what, if you're aware of, is Zoom text. We have Zoom text and JAWS, and they'll use Zoom text because unless they're legally blind or can't see at all, they won't be using JAWS. But we need to make sure that they can get the information from the customer document using Zoom text. And there are times when they can send the information to me or one of my team members, and we can do some quick fixes and then send it back, and then they're able to get all the information. There are other times where there's just really nothing you can do, that there is no way you can make it accessible, and then we would have to talk with the agent, whoever it is, and provide the information and help them understand a little more of what the customer is sharing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, with all of your you know, many years specializing in this area, you've probably seen you've certainly seen a lot of technology developments over the years and the evolution of the Web Accessibility Initiative information. But kind of as you look back, are there or look forward, are there areas that you think maybe haven't moved as quickly as you thought they would have years ago? Are there any certain areas that are like particular initiatives that State Farm is looking at trying to accomplish moving into the future?
Well, one of ours that it's so slow, but when you've got huge systems, it takes a long time to get things addressed. But we have something that our claims people use, and the developers have made great strides where the vast majority of it is accessible. There are still legacy portions that they're working on. There's still some other areas that they're working on. When you're talking about this program for the claim specialists, and there may be I think there are at least 150 applications that are used for that. And it takes a long time to be able to fix the issues in there, especially when a lot of them hadn't been updated for so long. It requires a complete overhaul. And that is something that I tell our folks, and when I talk to others in the accessibility community, is you can't expect everything to happen overnight. You may think it's easy, but there can be so many factors that make it so it is not an easy fix. Something, for example, would be color contrast. People would think, oh yeah, you just go in and make a change and it's fixed. But when you're talking like financial documentation, certain insurance documentation, things like that. Visual changes like that for like color contrast has to be approved by either the insurance board of the state or other government agencies. That takes a long time. There are other things that maybe the legacy application was developed in such a way that to make those what people would think are simple changes would mean to just start over and rebuild it.
Well, in all the time that you've been doing this work, I'm sure you've had to lean into a lot of resources to educate yourself and your team and others. What are some of the things that you do today to help others learn about accessibility and how it fits in with what they do? Are there onboarding programs, or kind of how is it set up at your organization?
Onboarding, I know they were going to add some things. I haven't seen recently how it's been updated, but we do have training. There are some simple accessibility information within like developer training when they first start. We have a whole lot of training available that we've been providing as webinars online. We're able to reach a whole lot of people that way. We used to try bringing in vendors to do the training, but it was very expensive and you could only reach maybe 25, 30 people at a time for this. Doing it online, we're able to reach 200-300 people per session. We get a lot of people joining that way. We've created training modules. I've created a lot of them just as PowerPoint, but have added detailed speaker notes and other things so that I can just pass these over to these accessibility teams in each area, and they can use those and basically read the script and help train their people that way. We have video on demand that people can use. We have, let me think, all other things. We haven't gotten to the point yet where just some kind of high-level accessibility knowledge would be required like other compliance training, but that is one thing I'm working towards, where people would at least have a general understanding of disabilities, people with disabilities, and the importance of accessibility.
Well, it certainly sounds like you have a robust accessibility team and activities going on where you work. So that's great to hear. I want to thank you for taking the time to share your journey into the profession and help inspire others to get involved as well.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Joe.
All right, thanks a lot. Bye-bye, Julie.
Bye.